Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome, friends, to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. Your host, Steve Fielder, here with you one more time. Thankfully, I'm back in Florida now, back at home, sleeping in my own bed after a 17-day road trip that took Miss Ella and me all the way up to New Jersey. If you count the District of Columbia, I guess you could consider that a state of some sort. Anyway, we traveled through 10 states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. So we had a good little road trip, went up to visit daughter Susan and granddaughter Alyssa, who graduated from high school. That was the prime event that we went to attend. Went up and had hoped to do some fishing while I was up there. As you know, I like to fly fish for trout, and there's a good river right there. They call it the Muskie. It's an Indian name, and I slaughter it, so we'll just call it the Muskie River. But rained every day. We were up there. Water got up high, and then a tracted, which is the correct term, a sinus infection while I was up there. So if you hear some wheezing and sneezing, you'll know that's the reason. Hey, that kind of rhymed, didn't it? Man. Well, anyway, I do want to thank my good friends, Buddy Woodbury, Jason Doobie, out at W Hunting Supply. They make this podcast possible. Without them, we wouldn't be able to come to you each week, and sure do appreciate those folks. If you need anything related to your hounds or hound apparel, lights, books, you name it, they got it. I mean, but the main thing that they're known for is their customer service. They do service what they sell, and they're great to work with you on any problems you might be having with your electronics or so forth. So you can find them at W, the letter U, huntingsupply.com. Well, it's my happy privilege to bring a gentleman to the microphone today that I have not personally spoken with in this kind of a format before. My friend Nubbin Moore, who you all know Nubbin, he's been on the podcast several times. He and I are kind of running buddies. I was just on the phone with him today. We're planning our trip to Autumn Oaks, which, believe it or not, will be coming up in a couple of months now. But he's been telling me about this guy there in Alabama who is the president of the Alabama Coon Hunters Association. And he says he's got a lot of information, a lot of things to share, and by golly, I gave him a call, and he said I would be glad to do that. And I'm very proud to introduce to my audience at this time Mr. Clint Chase from Gardendale, Alabama. How are you, Clint?
I'm doing very well, Mr. Steve, and I appreciate you having me on.
Well, it's my privilege. It always is. That's the thing about doing a podcast, is the opportunity to talk to folks. And as I said on a podcast just last week with another Alabamian, is it Bamian or Alabamian? How do you say that, Clint?
I would say it Bamian, but you can say it however you need to.
Okay. But I did get something cleared with this guy that I always have to get cleared up with anybody I talk to from Alabama. Are they a University of Alabama fan, or are they that other school over there on the east side called Auburn? And he let me know right away that he's a Roll Tide man. So,
absolutely.
All right. Well, my buddy Nubbin is too. And my guest last week, Lee McBride, he let me know that there's, Bear Bryant is a very special entity in his memories. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you love football and if you love Southeastern Conference football, who could forget that man in the houndstooth hat? And
Sure.
I told a little story about missing the last game that Alabama played Tennessee in Neyland Stadium when Bear was coach. And but anyway, we won't go into all that. But everybody knows there's a proud tradition of football in Alabama, and I find out, Clint, that you're very much involved in football, or at least high school football. There, tell my listeners just a little bit who you are. A little bit about what you do, where you come from, and then we'll get into all this coon dog stuff.
Yes, sir. Well, uh, I was born and raised here in Alabama, and I do coach high school football at a private Christian school here in Gardendale called Tabernacle Christian. Um, I've been an assistant coach or a coordinator since 2018, and started as head coach in 2020, the COVID year,
Oh
and
boy,
been doing that ever since, and absolutely love the opportunity to be a positive influence to these young men and trying to continue their career and play sports or whatever they want to do after high school. But it's a blessing. I also own my own landscape lawn service company, Chase Services, and uh, do that every day. And I have a wife and three children. My oldest is Clint Jr. He graduated this past year, and he will go on to play college football at Shorter University. We're actually taking him Monday to drop him off to start his college football career. And
awesome, awesome.
I have a set of boy and girl twins that
Mm.
will be seniors in high school this next year. So we stay extremely busy, and amongst all that, I coon hunt. So
Yeah, when you say Shorter University, is that in Shorter, Alabama?
no, sir, it's in
Okay.
Rome, Georgia.
Oh, it's in Rome, Georgia. I see.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was privileged to be in Shorter, Alabama, one time on with the Purina Award that we
Right.
held in Montgomery, and there was a
Sure.
gentleman named Ted Johnson. I don't know if you ever met Ted and or Mr. John Carter, who was one of the original drafters of the night hunt rules there in Alex City. Those fellows got together and wrote the very first set of night hunt rules.
Wow.
And Mr. Carter was on that with that group with Robert Graves and some others. And then his son-in-law, Ted Johnson, I met him and was fortunate to spend a night in their home there in Shorter, Alabama, out in the country. It's a beautiful part of the country. And but anyway, it seems like any time I go to Alabama, I have a pretty good time. I really enjoy it.
Well, it's a good place to be raised, and I've loved it, and it's where we call home.
Well, sure, absolutely. Anywhere in the South for me.
Yes, sir.
I was born in West Virginia, which is just barely under the Mason-Dixon line.
There you go.
Of course, the boys they fought on the wrong side in that
That's
war,
right.
but we've always been considered from the South. My mother was from West Virginia. My dad was from Tennessee. So, but we love everybody across the country. We've made a lot of great friends all over the United States,
Absolutely.
and so it's just been the sport of coon hunting has been great for me. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and how you got involved in this coonhound sport.
Well, as a young boy, my father uh, coon hunted. My grandfather coon hunted. I never got to meet him. He passed away when my dad was 16. But I guess probably at 3 or 4, uh, dad started taking us against mother's will to the woods. I've got a brother that's 17 months younger than I am, and he would take us. And dad just had great dogs, and it didn't matter what color they were or anything. He never stepped foot in a competition hunt, but he loved coon hunting. And I guess originally that's where uh, the love for the sport uh, came in, was
Mm-hmm.
was at a young age. But
Yeah.
my parents divorced. My father was an alcoholic and had some problems with their relationship, and so they ended up divorcing. And so for a long time, I really didn't have, um, coon hunting was not there after they separated. And um, eventually, where we went to church and moved to, there was a man there by the name of Donnie Hall that lives in Vance, Alabama, that I became friends with his youngest son, and they competition hunted, and I had never done that before. And Mr. Donnie, after going with them multiple times, um, I just, really wanted to do that. But, of course, I was that age where I was wanting to date and have a girlfriend. So that complicated things. So, and I got married at age 20. Uh, I'll
Okay.
be married 23 years
Well,
uh,
congratulations.
this
That's
next
great.
February to my wife. And
What is
we,
her name, by the way?
her name is Angie.
Okay.
And so I didn't coon hunt when we were dating. It was one of those stories where I just didn't do it, and she knew that I would hunt or whatever, but um because of my situation, I just was not able to do that at the time, and I was working two jobs and paying my way through college at night and those things. Well, I was I, I was working, and I was coming home one day, and I saw a saddleback black walker dog going down the road. And I had seen this dog multiple times on this road that I lived on. And I watched him go to this older lady's house. And so I drove up there, and I was like, "Ma'am, is this your dog? I'm scared he's going to get hit or whatever." And she said, "No, I think somebody dropped him off and would love for somebody to take him." Well, I couldn't get my hands on him, but I wanted him. Well, I drove down to the bridge and stopped, and he was running after me, and I dropped my tailgate, and he jumped up in the truck. And I went home, and I was like, "Angie, look, I've got this dog. I've got these friends from Tuscaloosa that competition hunt. Do you mind if I take this dog down there and see what he's all about?" I didn't know, what the dog was.
Right.
And so I called Brian, my friend, and went down there, and this Walker dog ran every deer that he ever smelt every time we took him for the next 2 weeks. And I realized that, well, that's not going to work out. And I ended up selling him to some deer hunters. But in in the midst of that, Brian said, "Look, why don't you just start coming down here and hunting with us, and this, that, and other, and you can go to some hunts with me." Well, they had a um, a night champion black and tan coon hound. His name was Dark Hollow Drum, that they had purchased from Johnny and Bruce Gillum. He
All
was a
right.
full litter mate brother to Dark Hollow Tag
Mm.
out of Hobo's Hoss. And
Yeah.
uh, Mr. Donnie let me take him home. And every time I would go to their house, of course, I would take him. And then on the weekends, I would go with Brian and spectate in a cast with him until I felt comfortable, which I can feel comfortable with things pretty quick. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
shy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was all pumped up and fired up about that. He was hunting a half brother to Drum named Shane. And I said, "I think I'm ready." And so to make a long story short, I ended up making Drum a Grand Night champion.
Awesome.
And the night he made Grand was in Leeds, Alabama, where I
Mm-hmm.
know you know Mr. Klein Dingler.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, he and his dad were running that club, and I made Drum a Grand Night that night. And Mr. Donnie came in with the plaques and all his certificates and papers, and he gave me that dog, which was a very
Mm.
humbling experience to me. And continued hunting Drum, and he died at an old age of 13 at my house. And so that's where my original love for the black and tan coon hounds came in, but was
Yeah.
because a father figure gave me an opportunity
That's it.
and taught me a lot. And
Mm.
So I started doing that,
Yeah.
and so that's where kind of my story begins as far as the competition side.
Well, I got you, and that's a great story for sure. When you mentioned Leeds, Alabama, of course, it is not far from kind of across the mountain there from where Nubbin lives in
Right.
Sterrett. But listeners may recognize that as the home of Charles Barkley,
Absolutely.
the basketball player. A few people have heard of him.
Hmm.
And also, there's a connection to Leeds, Alabama for me way back in my early days of coon hunting. There was a red bone dog in my part of the country that was quite well known. His name was Blakesley's Northern Chief. And I
Right.
mentioned this dog in a podcast the other day, and I got a message. And my goodness, my memory. I think I left it on the road the last couple of days. Gentlemen, it'll come to me in a minute. Mentioned that he was familiar with the dog, but anyway, I'll cut to the chase. The fellow that had that dog in my neighborhood there back in West Virginia sold him to a guy named Jimmy Fisher, who was from Leeds, Alabama. And
Gotcha.
it was a phenomenal price. I don't know if you ever heard of the dog. No, he was a red bone dog. And this would have been back probably in the early 70s. So,
Yeah,
but
that was
anyway,
before my time.
yeah. But when I can remember the ads that were run on that dog. And he sold for a 4-figure price that was quite large for dogs at that time. So
Wow.
that's what I remember about Leeds, Alabama. Well, that's a great story, and it does, and that speaks to the brotherhood that we have here. And the ladies will excuse me for calling it that, but here in the sport of coon hunting, some of the greatest salt of the earth people that we come in contact with, and just right there through Nubbin, I've met so many good people in the state of Alabama. I think right away of Jamie Perrin and Trey Perrin that go out each year and hunt with us at the White River, and just a real good friend, and that transplanted Yankee down there, Keith Durkee. Do you know Durkee?
I absolutely know. Keith, love him to death.
Keith's a great guy. He really is, and we have a lot of fun with Keith, and especially those Mississippi boys like to get after him about the way he talks, being from Maine, So,
Absolutely.
but anyway, that just goes for all over the country. For me, I've been so blessed to be able to travel in my job and meet so many people from so many different parts of the country. I want to talk just a little bit before we get into the black dogs, and I want to dig down into those for sure. But your work with the Alabama State Coon Hunters Association, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, sir. It's a privilege and an honor to represent the hunters of the state of Alabama, and this is my 4th year to be president, and I was not on the board or an officer before. I was contacted by the former president. He was kind of discouraged at the time, and was coon hunting is, as far as the competition side of it, has changed in the last 10 years just drastically. And the Alabama State Coon Hunters Association typically in the past has been more of a UKC entity than anything else, but we're not tied to any affiliation
Right.
per se. We can host other events, and they contacted me, and with coaching and owning a business and being busy, when I accept some responsibility, I want to be sure that I can put plenty of effort in that. So I turned them down the first year, and then the next year it was like, man, I've got to get out of this, and I'm kind of burnt out, and so I accepted, and they voted me in, and um, it was a new era, and I have a lot of ideas and thoughts to continue the sport for the state and make it relevant with the rest of the coon hunting. Our numbers had dropped, and uh, we were doing things the old way. And I have a great board and officers that are with us now, and they have really bought into my theory on how to continue and their ideas as well, not just mine. I don't want to take credit for all of that because they have plenty of advice and great ideas, and they work their tails off. And well, my idea of continuing the association was I wanted to continue the relevance of the sport and make it new and fresh. And so we changed up some ideas and uh, came up with, better prizes. And, the guys are getting away from the trophies and they're wanting money involved. Or, we hunt for trucks now, four wheelers, side by sides, and things of that nature. And so we've taken it to a new level in the state, and we've been paying um, our winners and trying to go live on the Final Forecast, and just making it more current. And we've done things like having uh, our booth at the Deer Expo here in Birmingham, and just making people aware of our sport. I want to continue the growth of that in Alabama, and have ideas of video and hunts, doing interviews. These podcasts are great. Kind of like the pro bass series do with those live things and all that. So a lot of new ideas. We've gotten in touch with the PKC side and wanting to do joint hunts. We have the all of our youth, our past youth hunt was funded by hunters of the state. We paid for every single show entry and hunt entry with other hunters. It was donated. So every kid that came to our youth event did not have to pay a dime. And that means a lot to me. But in the midst of all that, you want to honor the past, but stay relevant at the same time. So, sometimes it's a balancing act to make that happen. But like I said, I feel very privileged and honored to be a part of the association. It means a lot to me because I have a lot of older friends that showed me the ropes, and I care deeply about. And I tell people all the time, I've not had wonderful hounds that were world beaters and this, that, and the other. But the one thing that I have all over this country are relationships and friendships that I have developed over the past 30 years that I cherish very deeply. And my relationships mean more to me than anything in this sport. And I just cherish it so much.
Sure. Well, I can concur with what you're saying right down the line. You kind of struck a chord with me there when you mentioned about, respecting the past or remembering the past, but then looking to the future. When I was at UKC, things were really cranking in the coonhound world. We were having huge entries at events. I attended the Alabama State Championship one year in Clanton, Alabama. Do you?
I remember when it was at Clinton.
Yeah, and we had a big entry and a big event, and I'll always remember this, and I wish I could remember this gentleman's name. I had one of the nicest visits that I've ever had at a coon hunt with an older African-American gentleman. I cannot remember his name right now for sure. He was a nicely dressed fella. He liked the plot dogs, and I guess that was what struck a chord between us. But we sat and talked for a long time that day, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And I thought, now this is a fella I'd like to live near so I could hunt with him, every day or every night. And that's just a small example of just the people that you meet out there. Nubbin Moore, was a fella that I first met at Autumn Oaks when he won the whole thing in the 25th anniversary with a black and tan, if you can imagine that, Clint.
Absolutely.
And, he then became a field rep, and he and I became friends. And after I went to PKC, he was working in Memphis, and he came down to Aurora, Kentucky, and just to visit with me, and that friendship has just been just golden, Nubbin and I talk just about every day. But those relationships are what it's all about. And if we could just teach the newer generation, the newcomers and the kids that are coming up, that those friendships that they build will last, they'll be for a lifetime. And you have to take care of them and treat them like the most valuable thing in your life, because besides the Lord and my family, those friends are my absolutely, my greatest treasures. But,
absolutely. My closest friend that I hunt with now, well, go back to my original story, Brian, that I started hunting with the black dogs. When we were 27, he passed away in a house fire. So I lost him, and I was his best man in his wedding, and
wow.
so that was a tragic event. And then fast forward 20 years later, I had a friend 2 years ago that I coon hunted with every single night, Patrick Ragsdale, on the 4th of July 2 years ago, was mowing by the river on one of those zero turns, and he flipped over upside down in the river and passed away.
Oh, my goodness.
And so we buried him. And my friend now that I hunt with, Seth Burgett, he was just in the $100,000 PKC Michael Moody Memorial Hunt with his blue tick Bonnie female, gets in the top 16. And, all these guys have been very close friends to me. But, back to the competitive side of the state of Alabama, we're a very competitive group. We love where we come from. But if you realize, just for instance, the $100,000 hunt, we had 5 hounds from the state of Alabama that were in the top 16.
That's amazing.
In that hunt, with Austin Gentry and Connor, Seth and Bonnie, Goob Taylor with Rock, Ronnie Rowe Davis and Trip Duke with their deadbeat dog, and so many others that, Michael Ward from the state of Alabama, Trey Perrin, David Haynes, John Harris. You've got 2 men that owned the Roxanne female, Bobby Talley and Patrick Stewart, that won the world hunt with that Roxanne female. It's a very competitive state. And I've always said that every night we go to these night hunts, whether it be UKC, PKC, Pro Sport, what have you, we have a very competitive state. And if you can win in the state of Alabama, in my opinion, you can win all over this country.
Well, you've proven that that's true. And, that goes back. I can reach back to history. Pride Gann's finisher, Bean Blossom Buck. I'm sure there's a lot of others. Nubbin and I talk about Dr. Porter when he had his black and tans, and they were very competitive. And you got Roger Gibson that hunted the famous Amos dog for Roger Shabel. There in the state of Alabama, and just on and on. I'm kind of reminded of the NASCAR, the Alabama gang, back in the old NASCAR days, and but the Allison brothers and I guess Neil Bonnet, I think, was part of that gang, and
that's right,
and all, but that's NASCAR, and we're talking coon dogs, so I better not go down that rabbit path. That's something that to really change. You talk about coon hunting.
Absolutely.
But in fact, I guess that's on my mind. I went through the town of Darlington, South Carolina here a couple of days ago, and drove right by the big racetrack where the Southern 500s held for so many years and all. But all those Southern traditions just are really important to me. But anyway, yeah, absolutely, it's a competitive state, and football's not the only game in town.
That's right.
And I look back, and I remember attending I mentioned before, the Purina Award in Montgomery, and that was an award that we presented posthumously to the Thompson fella, Hardwood Buster 2 dog that won it. Rusty Thompson, wasn't it? Wasn't that his name? I believe.
I'm not aware.
Yeah, but that's probably a little bit before your time. 30 years gets away real quick.
Sure it does.
I'll tell you, Clint. So, but that's great. That's great. Well, I know that this sport is changing, and I have this conversation all the time. I like to look back to the old days. We all do. The memories, are so important. But we also have to remember, and my wife reminds me of this all the time. I talk about certain music on the radio or whatever. She says, "Now, Steve, you have to remember our parents didn't like our music when we were coming up either."
Yeah.
So, all of those things change. But I hope they won't change too much. It will lose,
That's right.
lose sight of the. And while we're talking about competitiveness in Alabama, and I mentioned it before, hey, that is the birthplace of the night hunt competition rules that are essentially the same rules that we hunt under today.
Yeah.
There's variations and different registries and tweaks and changes, but the main vehicle, the track it all runs on, is the same one that those boys put together there in Alexander City back there in the early or late 40s, early 50s. So,
Right.
tremendous heritage there for sure. All right. Well, let's talk about you and the Black and Tan dog. I know you're involved. Have you held an office with the American Black and Tan Coonhound Association? Or
I have not.
Okay.
I had attended from 2005 until 2019. I had participated in all the Black and Tan days, and really enjoy that atmosphere. If you've never been, it is a family oriented deal. Some people like, maybe the PKC side to show up, whatever, but the camaraderie and the love that the Black and Tan Association has for their hounds, to me, is unmatched. And they're just really sweet people all over the country, and they have, just accepted me and helped me through the years, not just here in Alabama, uh, but all over the country. And, I've owned a couple of hounds with Mr. Don Igley from Iowa, and
I know Donnie
really,
well. Great guy.
I love him to death, respect him immensely. And, uh, you know, back in the day, I worked for the railroad for 10 years. And I remember after Drum passed away, I was looking for a hound to hunt, and I really couldn't find. Drum was a quarter strike hunter, typically by himself, had a coon a lot of times, but I'm a sucker for a good tree dog. And Mr. Igley's stock of dogs, to me, from what I had seen, were extremely good striking dogs, and they were fantastic tree dogs. And
Mm-hmm.
he told me about this hound named Carl out of Etowah's Raging Black Bear, and I was Susie, and sent him down. Actually, Roger Gibson
Mm-hmm.
picked the dog up at one of the larger hunts and brought him down here. I went to Mr. Gibson's house to pick him up, fell in love with him, made him a night champion, had uh, in an RQE with 60 dogs in Lawley, Alabama, came in first. And I was like, man, I have found a gold mine,
Yeah.
Well, the next year in Chelsea at a RQE, Carl was winning the cast. I was judging, and he went up a leaning tree, had located and fell out 40 foot to the base of the wood floor. And we went in there, and he was still alive. I picked him up. I withdrew and went to the emergency vet, and he had broke 4 ribs and punctured both of his lungs and had to be put down that night. And of
Oh,
course,
man.
I'm in my early 20s and I'm loving this dog. And I go back to Chelsea and Nubbin's there. Jamie Perrin has already made it back, and I've got my dog in the dog box wrapped up in a sheet, and I've been crying. And I'm 6'2". Back then I probably weighed around 280. Now I'm about 300. But anyways, uh, I had cried my eyes out, and so I was telling everybody bye, telling them what had happened, and so I walk out to the truck, and Mr. Jamie Perrin comes out there, and he had gotten his little female um, named Little Bit that was out of Bad to the Bones cane. She had come in fourth that night, and he had gotten her qualified. And he said, "Here you go." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he's got her on a leash, and he said, "Take her." And I said, "No, sir, I'm fine. I had a younger dog at the house, and I was going to start hunting him." And he said, "No, I want you to take her." And I was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." Well, he would not allow me to leave that night, and he gave me the female, just gave her to me. And
Yeah.
so, it's just a
Doesn't
humbling thing,
surprise me.
and just a great man. He's a wonderful person. Has always been a great mentor to me, and so we had a little bit and hunted her for a while, and um, but I love hunting male dogs. And eventually we had bred her to a really nice dog and had a really nice litter and this, that, and the other, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And ended up calling Mr. Igley again. And he told me about a dog named Willie. And he was out of Tug and a Slam female. And which goes back to the Gillum stuff, and ended up getting Willie, and probably won more with that Willie dog than I have any other dog. Had a lot of fun with him. Um, Made him a Grand Night champion super fast. He was one of those dogs that, finished with all first place wins. And it was back when UKC, you had to come in first in the night champion division to be grand. All that. Made him a PKC champion, won several $1,000s with him, kept him in the top 16 in the breed in the state for several years and all this. So loved him to death, bred a bunch of females to him, this, that, and the other. And
Now, you called that dog, what was his full name?
Raging Black Willie.
Okay.
And I actually owned him with Mr. Igley.
I see. Well, when I talk to somebody that's passionate about their breed, and, for me, it's been the plot breed down through the years, and that was because of my father, and he loved the breed from the get-go and got the first one, registered one in 1954. So, that was just ingrained in my family. But as I talk to other people about their breed and all, I find that they're passionate about it. What is it about the black and tan that attracts you so much?
Well, I love the look to begin with. Drum was such a beautiful hound. He was a big old blocky-headed sucker, just like Tag. He was a very good-looking dog. I loved their accuracy. And I guess it was a familiarity with competition hunting and the people that had kind of given me a chance and kind of brought me in. So I think that had kept me. I'm a loyal person, or try to be, and I felt like those people had given me opportunity after opportunity, and I just fell in love with them, and was able to hunt with a lot of people that had, Mr. Johnny Gillum. We would hunt with him and Bruce, and it was
great
just
folks right there too.
just good people, and and I just enjoyed that so much, and I guess that's why I stuck it out with them for so long.
Well, I know that feeling, and of course, being a black and tan man, I know you've been to Flora, Illinois.
Absolutely. I've spent the night in Charlie Brown Park several times.
And I have as well, and not just when after I went to the UKC, because we had plot days there several times over the
Right.
years. In fact, they just had it there here this past month. But I had that same kind of camaraderie with the plot people. You know, we'd go out and hunt in the night hunt and come back in and eat breakfast in the kitchen and go out and pleasure hunt for 2 or 3 hours, sometimes till daylight. Come dragging in and stand around and talk all the next day. You know,
Right.
but you get that feeling. It's more than just the dog.
Yeah.
And that's the thing when I hear the stories, like I have from several people, you know, that went to the UKC Walker Days this year, and they lament how that Walker Days is nowhere near as big or as exciting or as much fun as it was back in the day. And honestly, none of the breeding associations are what
Yeah.
they once were, you know. But it is a changing time. The whole dynamic has changed. It used to be that the barns were full of stud dogs and banners and all of that. You don't see much of that kind of thing anymore. All the news comes online now. And also there are those changes, but there's still a lot of people that are excited about coon hunting,
Yeah.
that love a good dog and love to go and love the experience of being out at night with a good hound and listening to the chase and all that goes along with it. While I'm on that subject, Clint, you know, back in the very earliest days, the black and tan was a very slow, meticulous trailing dog.
Right.
Cold nose, they used to call them sky lookers. They'd take 2 or 3 steps, smell that track, throw their head way up toward the sky and let out a big mournful bawl, and then they'd proceed on. And, you know, that has all changed in the black and tan breed. And, of course, it did several years ago. And I guess Hans Wagner, if you've read the history, is the guy that's probably most attributed to bringing along what we call the medium-eared black and tan. And you know, the whole activity. As a track dog, what have you seen in the black and tan breed?
Well, it start when I first started hunting, you would see a lot more trailing type dogs and some that would get bogged down. And at times it would be very frustrating, but your uh claim to fame, I guess you could say, was they were going to have it when you got there.
Yeah.
And it may take them forever to get there. But then, as time rocked on, you started seeing these dogs start turning. And I think the rules of the hunts and things over the years have developed or adapt or changed the way we've bred and cultivated each breed. And you started seeing a change where I was telling you going, and I'm not knocking any other bloodlines or anybody's work that they have or hadn't done, but Mr. Igley, I just tend to like that style of dog
Yeah.
better. And and that's not the only breed that I've hunted. I still currently own a stud dog, a Grand Night champion, uh, named Hoss, Hatchie River Hoss, that is out of Mark Jones's Lick Dog, and Wendy, which is the number one female reproducer right now. And really love Hoss. Hoss is one of his sons, is the last winning baby stakes champion, one of a kind. And so, I'm proud about that cross that we made. And I hunted a dog named Knight for Jordan and Rayford Bethune in Fort Payne, Alabama. I handled that dog for them, and he was out of Batman.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting in the final 4 of the first legacy hunt that PKC ever hosted in Junction, Illinois, which was a huge honor. I was able to, Mr. Rayford paid for me to go and allowed my two sons when they were little to go up there with me. We stayed in a hotel with night. We get in the Pro Hound magazine. That was a big deal for me and my kids,
Sure.
And so I really liked that about it. He was that more, he'd get struck, get by himself. They were more, when I first started hunting, more pack dogs
Right.
than they were singled out. But you've seen over time where some of the breed, some of these dogs would get over there by themselves and get treed. Had the opportunity. I went to the pro sport truck hunt with a son off of my Willie dog that I call Flash, and hunted the late round and ended up drawing Jacob Jump that is handling the Deuce dog. And Deuce will get by himself and get under raccoons. And that, it's nice to see some of these black dogs getting to compete at a high level. And you take like Mr. Chad McCoyne, a good friend of mine, with all the successes that Chad has had with the black and tan breed all over the country, not just in his little world up in Indiana, but everywhere.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, when I was with the AKC, that was my last job. And part of what I inherited there, we were bringing all these UKC coonhound breeds into the AKC registry. And prior to that effort, the black and tan was really the only coonhound recognized by AKC.
Right.
In their confirmation rings, or what people would commonly think about as Westminster Dog Show and that sort of thing. And, so my job was to try to get out there and get as many of really, I was commissioned to get all those breeds, in to the registry. And so along with that went the responsibility of educating all of these AKC judges on what these dogs should look like, which dogs should be selected in the ring,
Right.
And one of the things that I always told those judges at those seminars, and for a country boy, I kind of got a little bit of a trip going, I'd go each year to Madison Square Garden and put on a seminar, for these AKC show judges about coonhounds. And I thought that was a trip, because here, we were always considered to be from the wrong side of the tracks,
Sure.
But anyway, I always told those judges, they're the fancy out there, or the composite group, collective group of people that own these dogs, are going to breed to the dogs that you put up in the show ring. In other words, the ones that you pick and they move to the top, those are going to be the dogs that will be bred to. So you got to be very careful and selective in selecting your winners, and make sure that you're going by these standards and all when you do that,
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same thing spills over to the competition world. When you see the deep and lonely Walker dog getting in there winning the big checks, well,
Right.
if you love a black dog, you're going to have to get a dog that'll do the same.
Sure.
Or near about it, and I guess just through breeding and training and all that goes with it, if you love a black dog, you're going to ride a black horse in this race. You're going to have to get one that can compete,
Sure.
And so it's interesting to see that some of the black dog breeders are doing just that, aren't they?
Yes, sir. A lot of them are, and I'm an administrator on a Facebook page called the Black Dog Mafia, and it's you see all these breeders and hunters talking, and I'm sure with every breed there's fussing and bickering going back and forth about this, that,
Coon
and the
hunters,
other.
are you kidding me?
Yeah, and and it's I think it's a good thing, and it can be a very positive thing if breeders will work together and hunters will work together for a common goal. but some of our goals are different, and that's okay. You've got people that just like to pleasure hunt and like a style of dog, and that's good, fine, and dandy. But I like to win. I'm very competitive, and for so many years, I tried to train and tried to do as much as I could with the black dogs, and because all those older men would tell me these stories and of winning, and Bruce had all these accomplishments, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
take people like that,
I like
excuse
that
me, like that.
rascal, don't you?
I love him to death. He's a great
I
guy.
always have a good time when I'm around Bruce. We always
He's
a lot of
fantastic.
stories, always a lot of laughs, and he's had some good ones, that's for sure.
He really has, and his dad is a legend in my mind.
Oh
And
yeah,
uh,
Johnny's top drawer. He's old school, He's yeah,
what
absolutely.
you just take all those people and you want to win for them, kind of, per
Hmm.
se. I want to make that successful and make those guys proud. Um, but I've changed it up a little bit. I still own
Well, I wonder
black
if you were
dogs, but
going to fess up to what I've been hearing about you.
oh yeah, I don't hide anything. I'm an open book, and uh, I have a good friend that lives up in Hamilton, Austin Gentry, that hunts a dog named Connor McGregor, and uh, he hunts for the Wolves out in Texas, and
Our listeners might remember him as winning the second tournament of champions.
that's right. And so what a great hound, and I've been able to pleasure hunt with him and competed against him, and so we stayed with each other up at the Pro Sport uh, truck hunt that the hunter appreciation hunt, which
Mm-hmm. The Black
kudos
Widow
to
hunt.
Pro Sport. I think they've got a fantastic thing going,
Yep.
and enjoyed that immensely being up there. But got to talking to Austin a little bit and knew that Connor had a brother, um, and got very interested. And I like a good looking dog, and
Mm-hmm.
as far as the walkers, it kind of goes back to my original story when I first got married. That dog that ran the deer was a saddleback, black all the way down his back, and a good looking head on him and all that. Well, he's got a brother, Willie's little peck, uh, and I found out about him and found out that Mr. Roger Shable owns him,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a man that was handling him up north. And I called Mr. Shable and I was like, look, I had some people check around on if he could be bought, and he could be bought, but this old boy would never be able to afford it. And with a family and all that, there's just no way that I could pay that price for him. And so I called Mr. Shable and I was like, look, I live right here in your back door. And
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people, and um, I like to think that I'm a trustworthy guy, and if you're ever looking for a handler, uh, just let me know. And he wasn't interested; he was looking for a buyer. So I just let it rock on. And I just said to myself, Lord, if you want me to that dog, just make it happen. But I'll be able to afford him. Well, my buddies were up there at the $100,000 hunt. Mr. Goob Taylor called me and he said, "Are you sitting down?" And I was doing a landscaping job, and I was thinking they're fixing to tell me that one of the dogs has passed away. My buddy Seth is up there with Bonnie, and Seth is right beside him. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, uh, "Just got off the phone, Mr. Roger Shable. He wants you to call him." Well, Seth likes to mess with me all the time. And I was like, "I'm not calling Mr. Shable. Y'all are trying to make me look like a fool." And I didn't believe him. And Seth got on the phone and said, "Clint, you need to call him. We're serious." So, I'm shaking at this point, and I called him, and he said that he had talked to multiple people about me, and he feels like it was a good fit, and asked me if I wanted to handle Peck. And I think he calls him Paycheck, but his paper name is Peck. And
Mm-hmm.
I told him yes, and they ended up bringing him down to me from the $100,000 hunt, and I've been hunting him for 2 weeks now. absolutely love the dog.
Okay, we got a little break in the phone there. You said you've been handling for 2 weeks now?
I've been hunting him for 2 weeks
Okay.
now, and Mr. Shable and I are gonna talk. He told me to hunt him and see how I liked him, and if I liked him, we would work something out, and if not, we would find something else. But I'm really liking him.
Good.
And so I'm enjoying him. Super smart hound, love the mouth, and he's batting 1,000 right now, so that's always a plus.
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's no question that the Rackham Willie dog is a producer.
Absolutely.
I think it was at the Tournament of Champions. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I know you're up on this a lot better than I am, but it seemed to me like it was about 6 or 7 dogs out of Willie that were up there toward the finals there of the Tournament of Champions.
Yes, sir. And there was a young lady that won at the Youth Nationals with a dog out of Willie, and so he's really doing well.
Yeah, for sure. And won the AKC and the UKC World Championship. So that's not too shabby, for sure.
Right.
Well, that's great. That's just great to know. Well, what's the temperature? Well, that's a poor choice of words right now. I know it's hot in Alabama right now, if it's anything like Florida. But what's the temperature of the coon hunting sport in the state of Alabama right now, do you think? What's the overall attitude from the guy that's looking from the top floor?
I think it's fantastic. I in my opinion, there's not a better time to be a coon hunter. And, a non-coon hunter or people that don't understand our sport, they don't have a clue where we are now. But the opportunities that are in front of us and available to us now are incredible. And I know, coming from a poor family and trying to be financially stable and having to work all the time, and it can become, some of these hunts are a little costly, and this, that, and other. So that aspect of it is changing a little bit, but there's ways around those things. So I understand on one side where that temperature is as far as some people's concerned, but if we're going to go forward, if we're going to compete worldwide and be known worldwide for our sport, I think it's important for us to have an open mind and grow. And I think that Alabama has been relevant. And for whatever reason, throughout the years, just like you said, the rules started here in the state. And I hope that we continue to grow in the state and go with the times instead of staying where we were, 40, 50, 60 years ago, and can continue this, because I wanted to see it grow and grow and grow well past where it is now. But I think the temperature is great here. And I think that is evident when you see the state of Alabama compete all over the country in these larger hunts as good as we do.
Well, you certainly made that point very well with the showing that these Alabama dogs are doing are putting forth out there. If we could just convince the coon hunter out there that just because a certain type of dog, or just because of a certain breed of dog, or this may not be our own personal cup of tea, that we need to get behind our fellow hunters. We need to be supportive of them. If they hunt a different brand of dog, so what? They probably drive a different brand of pickup than we do. Sure. Their wife might be blonde and ours may be brunette, whatever. We are all different. We all have our own likes and preferences and all, but this is our sport. And I've said this so many times, among the hunting population of the citizens of the United States is a small fraction of the overall population. And then among all those hunters, coon hunters are a very small portion of that. I mean, yeah, our sport is big and it's vast and it's all over the country, but still, we're few in numbers, relatively speaking. We have to join together. We have to be supportive of each other. You know, it it used to just make me shake my head when guys in a club won't be welcoming, won't be friendly, won't be encouraging to new members coming in. Then they want to have a hunt and they complain about the low numbers. Well, I can't
Absolutely.
make any money hunting my dog because I didn't have any dogs. Well, did you welcome those hunters in? Jamie Perrin is a guy who uses the expression a lot, pot builders. He said, we're just building the pot, over
Yeah.
here, which Jamie's usually packing a pretty good coon dog.
Yes.
Anyway, I know I'm rambling a little bit, Clint, but that's been a message that's been near and dear to my heart forever. Is get behind your fellow coon hunters, support each other. If you get beat, shake your hand. There'll be another hunt probably tomorrow night, the way
Yes.
the hunts are today. Let's be one for all and all for one. You know what I'm saying? Is that old fashioned?
Absolutely. No, sir. That's just a life lesson to all of us. And I tell my football players all the time, it's real easy to be a winner. It doesn't take any character to win all the time and be successful. Your character shows up when you lose.
Yeah,
How do you handle that situation? How are you going to be better? What are you going to do next week with your hound, with your attitude, with what you're doing to make your situation better for
yeah,
yourself?
yeah,
And I think we're fighting against society right now, and uh, with everything changing the way that it is, with this new generation coming up, we fight with that anyways.
right.
But as long as there are men out there that are willing to do the right thing, take young ones under their wing, help them grow in the sport, treat them right and respectful. And I'm not saying just give them whatever, but make them work for it, teach them the
Sure.
ropes, and do the right thing. I think that our sport will continue to grow. But it's about these young generations coming up. What are we going to do with them?
Yeah.
And how passionate are we to fight for our sport when it comes to us losing land, uh, hunting spots and situations like that? Are we going to the legislative branch and fighting for our rights? And if you don't know how to do that, there are people in every state that can help you figure that out and get there
For sure.
and represent our sport in a respectful way to legislation to make those things uh, happen. And I just encourage everybody listening to just hang in there, treat people right, do the right thing, and continue to do what we love to continue the sport.
Words very, very well spoken, Clint. Hey, you have been a fantastic guest for our program here. I'm so glad that Nubbin suggested I give you a call. I just can't get around to everybody, it seems, and I know I'm not going to last forever, but I do like to bring the people on that have something to say, and you're certainly one of those. And I'm really enjoying the fact that you're involved in sports. That's a great opportunity, as you say, to lead young people, to steer them in the right direction. Sports, especially football, it seems, is such a great character building sport as as you teach teamwork and as you say, lessons of life. We're going to have some battles. We're going to have some disappointments. When we go out there tonight and been worked all hard all week to get that dog ready, and he just doesn't look good. We don't look for shortcuts to try to win when we're getting out coon dogged.
Right.
All those things. But, I don't want to preach to the young people. I want
That's right.
to lead. I want to try to encourage. I want to try to tell them that, it is not all about the winning. My book is called Gone to the Dogs, A Coon Hunter's Journey. It's a journey. We say the longest trip begins, with the first step. My journey began just like yours when I was about 3 years old going coon hunting with my dad, and who knew that I was going to be able to have a career that involved coon hunting, something that I loved, from the first time I ever went to it. And it is possible, but not everybody can work at a registry. Not everybody can handle a dog to win a $100,000 hunt, but they can get a nice dog, enjoy that dog, enjoy training that dog, enjoy those nights in the woods under the stars. Old Nubbin's a pretty good astronomer. He
Yeah,
tells
right.
me all where now you see the Milky Way there, and you see this and that. So, but anyway, those are the kind of things that will really mean something down the road when you get to be an old guy like me looking
Sure.
back on
And
it.
I would like to say one more thing before you close, Mr. Fielder. You talk about the journey and living this life of coon hunting, and it started when I was 3 with my dad, and we talked about how uh, he was an alcoholic, abusive to my mother, and they were separated, and so there was a lot of bitterness as a young man for
I'm sure.
myself. And my mother continued to raise my brother and I in church, and I found a relationship with the Lord. And when I became 18 years old, I wanted to know who my father was that I never got to be around, and but there was a lot of hurt and bitterness and confusion still in my life, but I was searching for that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Coon hunting has done that for me over and over and over again. And my dad has been, uh, he passed away over 18 years ago,
Mm,
but I got to know my father at
good.
18 years old, started by coon hunting again. We started that relationship building again, hunted
Mm,
for several years together. And my dad, one night, we get back to the truck, and he used to smoke cigarettes, and he was winded, and he sat down and he said, "Son, there's something about you that's different." And I said, "Daddy, it's not me, it's the Lord." And he said, "Well, whatever it is, son, I want to know how to
mm,
get that." And
mm.
I said, "Well, Dad, I'll tell you what, we can do it right here." So on the back of a coon hunter's truck, we sat on that tailgate, and I was able to pray with my father. And
Awesome.
he was saved that night, and found out within 2 weeks that he had stage 4 lung cancer. They
Mm,
gave him 6 months to live. He died in 3. But I was able to
thank
get
you.
that relationship with my father and
Mm.
know that one day I'll see him again. And it all revolved around a hound and a relationship in the woods. And I appreciate this sport so much and every opportunity that I've been given over the years.
Well, extremely well said, and we always want that message to carry through on these podcasts, Clint, and thank you so much for sharing that, because it's a lot bigger than just the sport of coon hunting, but can be a vehicle to bring people into your lives and help you to be an influence on somebody else's life. You never really know. I used to say when I stood at the microphone whether it was at the Tennis Center in Aurora, Kentucky, or it was in the Coleman Center at Autumn Oaks in Richmond, Indiana, or whatever, and looked out across that sea of faces, how many people there were hurting, that had issues, that had things, maybe they got a phone call, that day that they need to come home, that so and so, has been in an accident, whatever. Hurts come, in all kinds of different ways. But there is an answer, and the answer is the Lord, and He's the one that can solve and heal and mend relationships and whatever the case may be. And I don't get generally preachy on this podcast,
Yes, sir.
but I don't either want to ever be ashamed of the fact that I'm born again, that my faith is in Jesus Christ, and He is my strength. And He's kept me safe through millions of miles of travel over 76 years. And,
Yes.
He can do the same for you out there, guys. I know you may not have thought you were going to church when you dialed up this podcast tonight or today. But anyway, thank you so much, Clint, for sharing that with us. And
Yes, sir.
words very well spoken. Well, we'll look forward to hearing big things of you and this, what do you call him, Willie? This Walker
Peck.
dog?
His name is Peck.
Peck. That's right, Peck. Peck's Bad Boy, we used to hear when I was a kid. I don't know where that came from, but that was. Well, it's been delightful to talk to you, Clint, today. And thanks again to my friend Nubbin for suggesting that I call you. And I appreciate your time that you spent. We'll be airing this podcast on the coming Monday. Let's see, we're recording here kind of late this week, just after the 4th of July. So I don't know, do you know what next Monday is, Clint?
It's the 10th.
Okay, this will be on the Hound Podcast DU Hunting Supply Network there. And the link is podcast.dusupply.com. And just look for the episodes that say Gone to the Dogs. This one will say Gone to the Dogs with Clint Chase, and that'll be on Monday, July the 10th. Okay, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If somebody asks you where that old coon hunter Steve Fielder, what's he doing these days, just tell him he's down there in Alabama, gone to the dogs.